pleasure to be here, right? And it's always a, it's more of a honor to talk to the NGOs, to talk to the CSR teams who are the actual change makers on the ground. And your contribution help us, share such a long introductions that you heard of each one of us, right? So, and it has been a long day. I'm sure you have been attending multiple sessions. So to set the context for this particular panel discussion, the topic is not new, right? We have been talking about digital transformation and empowering youth, but the narrative has changed big time in past 1.5 years, right? The way we talk about digital transformation now, the way we talk about livelihoods now, there's a different meaning to it, different significance to it. And if you think about the bigger picture, so when the Finance Minister of India was presenting the survey last year for 2021, the spend on social welfare as a proportion to GDP increased from 7.5% to 8.8%. Now, how this is related to what we're discussing today, right? As an economy, as a large country, large diverse country, we cannot afford to keep investing money on social protection, and at the same time think of economic growth. Now, what is the way out? If we really want to be a very, the way we call it, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or thinking of a sustainable and equitable growth across all corners of the country, only way is that we need to empower our youth, right? And when it comes to empowering youth, again, it's no more a simple template which was there, a decade back. We're talking about a diverse country. We are talking about new set of challenges due to the pandemic. So we need to see it from a different lens altogether. And we need to think of all non-conventional approaches. We need to think of leveraging digital platforms. We need to think of all those non-traditional sectors, including sports, tourism, so that we can create a lot of local livelihood opportunities. We also need to think of different segments. One side, you have school children who are sitting at home, acquiring all the skills online nowadays. You have a lot of students who are not into technology courses, right? They need some kind of skills which enable them to either start some business or possibly get employed. You have many students who are doing engineering and other professional courses, but they're still not employable. Different set of problems. At the same time, we also need to, cut that trend of urbanized job market. The people used to migrate from one place to the urban areas and possibly, and we have seen the impact during the pandemic. So with this, I would like to, warmly welcome the panelists, because I think each one of have a very big story to tell about all these initiatives. They have been doing it at the scale of millions. And, we will follow a thumb rule where each panelist will get an opportunity to speak about the initiatives for 5 minutes. There will be 10 minutes for question and answer. So please keep noting down your questions on the chat box, and we'll take those questions towards end of the session. Now, the first question goes to my dear friend, Manoj, right? And I will use my notes as well so that I do the justice to the discussion. So Manoj comes from IBM, a large technology firm, but I think IBM is known for some other bigger cause as well. I think Manoj has been leading number of initiatives to empower millions of youth. Now, question for you, Manoj, is that IBM has been into the skilling, for years now. It has been a mandate for you. But what are the real on-ground challenges that existing interventions, face? You would have seen multiple challenges. You would have overcome that, and you have seen more challenges during the pandemic, right? Now, how exactly you have addressed those challenges? Any recent learning or experiences you would want to share? Because considering the scale of initiatives you run, it will be a big learning for all the NGOs and the CSR partners, sitting as audience, that how exactly IBM is doing it to such a large scale.
Thank you so much, Anurag, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here, a part of this esteemed panel. And a big shout out to CSRBOX and EasyGov for bringing us all together and to talk about one of those most widely talked about topics in the industry, right? And not just for education alone, but almost in every industry, about how do we transform, transition, and transport all our relevant stakeholders in this digital journey which we're having. Right. So before I answer specifically to the question, so let me also set up some context with regards to what are the state of affairs in the market and the demand supply gap which we've seen. Right now, ILO has clearly stated that there are going to be 29 million skills deficit by 2030, which is going to have an expected GDP loss of around $1.97 trillion. Okay, and if that's not controlled, it's going to be a huge issue, right? And skilling is such a complex challenge that organizations across the world, it's not just in India, we are not just talking about a local issue, but across the world, just struggling to grasp it. And obviously, if it's not remedied, huge risk of losing the best of talent and falling behind in businesses and all that. And you can see the result of it in attrition rates. It's just in India in the last couple of quarters here. Now, obviously, IBM is a tech company, so I kind of talk about some of the tech gaps which are there in skills, right? So currently, if you look at it, roughly there are around 610,000 people working with cloud skills. Now, cloud, everybody's talking about cloud. And presently, there are also close to 270,000 open spots for these cloud skills. Okay. And by 2025, these cloud skills are going to be, the requirement of these cloud skills is going to go up to around 2.2 million. And that is something which came out of a NASSCOM's cloud skills report, which came out in August or something. If you see yesterday's newspaper, so this is the newspaper, right? And this is yesterday's newspaper. You can see the IT jobs have actually increased from 4.4 million to 4.8 million. Now, obviously, IT jobs companies are hiring now, but it's also got a indirect effect. 3.2 million indirect jobs have also been created as per this report which came out yesterday, right? Let's talk about the startup ecosystem in the country. 42 unicorns in India just in this year. Again, the same day, a report about used car company Spinny becoming the 42nd unicorn, but $1 billion market cap, right? Day in and day out, you can see about technology innovation. This is this morning's newspaper in the Times of India about CryptoWire, right? CryptoWire inaugurating something in the digital space and blockchain. Today is the world of NFTs and cryptocurrencies, and imagine the job opportunities which are coming up because of this environment of entrepreneurship across any field which you see. It's not just in IT, right? Healthcare, retail, education, manufacturing. Now, whoever thought that we'll have the world's largest e-bike manufacturing unit in India, in Krishnagiri. I'm in Bangalore, so around 100 kilometers away. Largest e-bike manufacturing company in the world. This is the kind of jobs which are coming up now. Now, AI, the proliferation of AI is just unbelievable. You take anything. I just test drove the XUV7, Mahindra's flagship vehicle, which was just launched. It's unbelievable the amount of computing. You just need to lock to the car ahead, acceleration, deceleration, everything on its own, right? Elon Musk was just, there's a rumor about Elon Musk launching a new phone called the Model Pi. And the features which are actually there, it's going to blow your mind. There's going to be ultra high bandwidth interfaces where you can think and the phone will work. Can you believe the kind of opportunities which are going to come up? And what you thought 5 years before, it's the reality now, right? And these are all, crazy science fiction stuff which you think may not happen. And just driverless cars, for example. Oh, we're never going to get driverless cars in India. And I'm telling you, XUV 700, it's just a matter of how, you still need to hold the steering wheel. It still goes. Okay. Now, in this context, I would say that we are not trying to say that everybody needs to code and everybody needs to be developers there. We still need musicians, we still need artists, we still need sports people, we still need chefs, fitness trainers. But we have seen how these professions have also adopted technology during the pandemic. And apart from being consumers of it, I think we should also start to learn how to create tech. Now, Obviously, India is the world's largest or the youngest country in terms of age, and the average age is 29 years. And this is the perfect age for us to kind of ensure that the youth is getting to digital, right? That whole digital transformation. And most of our CSR initiatives are focused around that. We have a program called STEM for Girls, which is focusing on age 13, 14, and 15, where we are encouraging girls into the field of STEM. Because again, not too many women representatives are there in the field of tech. So we have got huge numbers. We are actually working in around 11 states, reaching out to around 300,000 students and encouraging them into the world of tech. Skills Build was a platform which we launched during the pandemic, actually. And it actually addresses the youth, the educators, and the job seekers. And presently, we have close to around 650,000 learners on this digital platform where we are actually giving them access to emerging tech. So is it easy to get them all on board onto these digital platforms? Absolutely, the question is not. It's not an easy, it's not a given thing. But we have evolved some of our initiatives from STEM for Girls, for example. It was a in-school engagement which we have, and then unfortunately, because of pandemic and lack of access to these students, what we have done is we have kind of moved into an online model. We have kind of moved the content online using any available platforms, right? WhatsApp, Google Meets, and Teams, and reaching out to these students and getting them engaged there. Skills Build, as I said, is a platform where there is also mentorship, which we are now providing to the learners. Project-based learning, which is actually available, and then access to jobs. In fact, this year alone, we have given close to around 7,000. We have been able to provide around 7,000 jobs for learners on the Skills Build platform, and it's only going to double and triple in the next coming years. So I think the focus on from a CSR perspective from IBM's will continue to be digital. We will continue to work with partners trying to address what are the gaps there, trying to ensure that we are able to bring in the right kind of focus in ensuring that the impact is ideal. Now, obviously, we can't address the complete ecosystem of people from an education perspective because, access, not everybody's got access to it. But again, we are doing internal stuff. There is a call for code, which we have. We have hackathons where best of brains from IBM and across the world are coming together to figure out what can we do to address this. Now, there are programs on feature phones, which you can actually do to reach out to these kids and really address. So I think the journey has just begun. The digital train has definitely left the station and is only going to accelerate in the coming years. And the faster we are able to equip the youth, the faster they would be able to hop on and be a part of this. So I think that's a quick summary of all the stuff which we do. And over to you, back to you. And I kind of jump in.
No worries, Manoj. You did exceed some time, but I think it was worth it because you did bring in the NFTs and DAOs in the discussion, right? We were talking about new form of job opportunities, and I think people must see such kind of startups coming up, even places like Indore, Raipur, another tier 4 town. And thanks to all the retail platforms that actually youth is knowing about such emerging technology. Now we'll move quickly to Ketan, right? So we have heard of IBM. We have talked about 650,000 learners. We talked about $1.97 trillion economy, the impact, and the linkage with skill. Now Ketan brings in a very different kind of experience, right? And it is so fascinating that somebody who started focusing on skilling others while he was in college, right? So Ketan brings in that kind of experience that he is more like started to focus on the larger cause. Now, Ketan, you're one person who is focusing on a different segment altogether. We also have to focus on segment that how different initiatives are different because the segment is different. You've also leveraged number of digital tools, right? And as an entrepreneur, you can say, because once you start scaling, you need to find those ways, right? Not necessarily the jugaad ones, but you need to find those tools, how exactly you can scale the impact. So Ketan, we would love to hear your experience. How did you scale? How did you start?
Thank you, Anurag, for setting the context. And I think with Manoj's opening batsman, I think the skill development of digital technology is all set. I think I still feel that when I was in college, it was much easier to learn skills with the so much penetration of new age of technology and skill upgradation is required. I have a very interesting proposition which we tried with young students, especially coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. We kind of utilize the certifications which are uh, available to them to do from LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, and all other already existing providers. What we had to do was we had to leverage them and connect them. Of course, solving the data connectivity issues by providing them and bringing them at one center at a time, and then giving them this access. But while doing so, we also needed a good access to all the colleges. And I think India has so many colleges, engineering especially, whose infrastructure lies vacant at most of the time. And it was just 2 3 years back when we started two shifts of engineering colleges. I think it took almost 20 years for us to realize that we can double the intake of the same institute by providing two shifts in a college or an institute. But in the same way, if we can create shifts in digital technologies which we are training at fuel through artificial intelligence, digital marketing, coding skills, and starting from beginning, it really aspires the student to take coding as their career. At the same time, we are not making them not do arts or not do commerce or something like that. We are making them enabled to learn digital technologies. And at our programs with Fuel, what we are trying to do is identify those disadvantaged youth who really aspires to go into this big force and prepare them for those competitive placement preparations. And to my surprise, a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 colleges who do not have resources, who do not have the adequate bandwidth, are the people who actually crack the interviews of these companies. And it's because they have that aptitude in them. They may lack in communication, they may lack in representing their output, but sincerely they make an attempt to do it. And that's where our program of future skills training in colleges and schools has helped the marginalized communities. Precisely to speak with you, there's another challenge which we explore is giving that credits to the students. Unless it becomes a formal system of skill development, it becomes little difficult for them to accept into corporates. And for that, what we did was we followed a German cooperative university model where we tied up with universities who can also give them credits for their subjects. And that's what NEP is also talking about. And going forward, we will have 1 year course he gets with a diploma, or a certificate, 2 year course, again, he gets a diploma, and 3 year course, he gets a degree. I think that kind of innovation was needed in skill ecosystem. And as we all talk about digital India, make in India, skill India, all of this need quality human resource potential. And for that, the work which we at Fuel is focusing is to train them. We're also focusing them on mock interviews, aptitude, and also personality development. We are doing LinkedIn profile competitions where they make their profiles and experts evaluate those profiles and give them feedback. They're completing certifications from Microsoft, LinkedIn, so that they get, or AWS, so that they can get the credits which they duly recognize. And we also have corporates who are also involved with the TOC, what we call is terms of reference for the content of the syllabus. So we also have to partner with like-minded companies who actually give their content, and then the trainers train them. So at the most, we can prepare them for those jobs which they are looking at. So this is the model of innovation which we have built, and we visualize to have a skill tech university going forward, so that the formal education system is also given to the students and they get an option from NEP to get graduates also. Thanks, Anurag. Over to you.
Thanks, Ketan. Best wishes for your Skill Tech University. Hopefully, you will come from Skill Tech University in the next session,
Sure.
right? And good, you brought in the strength of leveraging the existing resources. I think all those resources are freely available. It's all in the public domain. But how you use it in terms of the physical infrastructure of colleges and the content which is already available. Right? So this is really interesting, because you need not stop by the constraints that we cannot cause a impact just because we cannot create content. Enough content is available in the market, and there are enough delivery channels for that as well. Now, with the content as a theme, I think we should move to Manish. Manish heads Centum Foundation, and he has been closely watching how exactly the job dynamics are changing, right? The entire market has changed completely, right? And there are, there are different ways that how exactly the youth can match up with the increasing expectations, the change in job dynamics, right? And I believe Manish also has something to share with us in terms of the tool they have developed in house. Over to you, Manish. Why don't you share your learning?
Yeah, so first of all, very good evening to all the change makers and good evening to our highly passionate panelists. I'll be speaking about primarily about on two things. One is that I'll be speaking about Centum Foundation and Skills in a Box joint initiative of Gift a Future Skill. Manoj has shown us the numbers that we are standing on, how the skills ecosystem, how the demand in the industry is changing. Right from in 1700, that was the industry revolution, that was the era of manufacturing, then we shifted to electrical, then we shifted to automation, wherein we had computers. Now it is industry 4.0, where we are seeing connected devices. So now, considering this industry revolution, wherein we are regularly seeing the new sets of jobs which are coming up, how the existing skill sets would not exist in coming maybe 6 months or a year or so, and how new kind of a skill sets are in high in demand with respect to connected devices, IoT, AI, ML. So this is an excellent initiative that we are taking it forward. So we call it as it's a do-it-yourself kit, and we are focusing on new kind of emerging jobs, and it's ever evolving kind of job roles that we are coming up. So to start with, we have got IoT, network engineering, and data scientists, and then all the courses are having the component of AI, then coding and machine learning. And this is completely aligned to the current job roles and the emerging kind of a job roles. Next slide, please. So this is a simple do-it-yourself kind of a kit that we take forward, taking it to the students, the learners, or anyone who's interested. And the learner learns through either through a LMS, learning management system, or also we have got a facilitator-based model wherein a learner learns the skills through a trainer. And the kit also contains all the circuits and everything that requires to make a learner, so learner is able to make a product out of whatever he or she is learning. So it's a continuous kind of a theory plus practical exposure that a learner gets through this DIY kit. And this also helps the learner to build confidence as the learner is able to learn and also build a product. And the whole course is SSC certified. It's like industry driven courses, and post completion of the course, the learner gets a assessment certification for the Sector Skills Council. So this is what is the course, the initiative that we have recently launched, and we are taking it forward to the government schools, because as per the new education policy and also the existing NSQF program of government, vocational skills are imparted to students from class 9 onwards. So this is what we are planning to take it forward to the government schools. So this is one of the initiatives that I was planning to talk about. Second initiative is that we are also experimenting very kind of a niche skills, up shift from normal conventional skills. So now we are going to the community, not with only conventional skills. Definitely future skills are also there, but also with entrepreneurship, job work. And for example, now in one of the area in MP, we are implementing a program. There we are working with the micro entrepreneurs, people who are interested for business. We are also helping them, just giving a one-day kind of a training, how to create a good video and put it on the YouTube or put it on any social media. So we all know that how the YouTube and then short films has captured the entire virtual world, how people are able to earn. So we have got videos coming from very remote of the country. So this kind of a skills we are imparting, and we are experimenting this, that how does this pans out. So maybe in the next year conference, I'll be able to tell you guys that what are the impact that we were able to create out of this intervention. So what I mean that the whole skill ecosystem is ever evolving. We at Centum, we are aligning to the emerging kind of a skills where technology and digital is at the core. And also we are trying out and experimenting new kind of skills that are already existing in the market and that could be leveraged and provide an alternate source of income to any individual or any youth. Thanks, Anurag.
Thanks a lot, Manish. So you brought in a different segment, school children, and you also brought in a different perspective that a lot of learning can happen using the DIY kits, right? Because when you talk about the online learning or digital learning modules, there are times when it will not necessarily give you the hands-on experience for all kind of jobs. So I think you're covering that big gap. Other thing which you are doing very well, and Ketan also talked about, same is the soft skill part. It's not all about coding. We need to talk about micro entrepreneurship. We need to talk about the video is a very, very good example, which is very simple one, but it definitely creates a potential and it empowers the person who's sitting at the remote areas. Thanks a lot, Manish. Moving to Lavanya. Lavanya, you are coming from Genpact and you have heard a lot of stories starting from the NFTs to the DIY kits. Now, what exactly Genpact is doing, and if at all you want to throw some light on the non-traditional sectors, if Genpact focuses on such initiatives, possibly non-IT or something else, that what exactly we can do more to penetrate through this complex problem, which is very complex now because of pandemic.
No, thanks so much. And once again, thank you so much for having me here today. I think one of the things that I'd like to call out as I've heard all the conversations and as you look at what's happening in the space and in the sector is we're all focusing on specific areas. But I think the point is today technology is a way of life. And that is not going to change. And therefore, the skills of the future definitely hold a component of technology, but not the only aspect of it. So I think one of the things we've focused on as an organization is that when you think of people who need to be able to leverage technology in order to be employable, technology in order to be educated, how do you harness other skill sets that they bring in order to be employable and for them to continue to be current as far as the job market is concerned. So I think when you think of skills of the future, tech plays a huge role and there is no denying that. But I also think that there are other components in terms of different skill sets that come into play when you think of what future readiness looks like. I mean, at the end of the day, tech is taking over so much of our day-to-day lives. It's going to be that strategic thinker, the deal closer, the person who can engage. That's going to be the person who's going to be most relevant in the future. And I think as we think of some of our CSR programs, those are the aspects that we look to cover through the educational institutions that we are supporting as an organization, right? So that's one component of it. When you think of the current environment of livelihoods and wanting to create, small scale businesses and the way you want to think of creating that tech component to them, again, a very critical component, but also critical to that is how do I run my business? How do I think of a return of investment? How do I think of scaling my business? And tech continues to play one strong component to it, but then there is the entire ecosystem that you have to develop. So and as an organization, we're a process organization. It's our bread and butter. So that's how we like to look at things, which is that what are the several elements that come together in order for us to be able to create that livelihood project. I mean, currently we're in progress of implementing one with United Ways Delhi and Mandeshi Foundation, which focuses precisely on this, which is the training, the development, the mentorship, and then of course the digital skills required in order to be able to run such an enterprise. When you think of youth of today's day and age, and we're thinking of people with limited to no access. I mean, if you look at students studying on WhatsApp video in various schools across the country due to the pandemic, I'm always mesmerized actually by our agility as a group of people. Just the fact that we will make the best use of the one thing that we have in order to drive it towards the future. So when you think of that availability of digital content, how is it that you skill youth from the ground in order to create that exposure and access? I mean, if I talk to my 13-year-old today, I don't need to explain to her what a computer is, what coding is, or anything. It's almost like they're hardwired. But at the same time, you have an entire set, which is a large chunk of the population that has not had that exposure, not had that access, who are possibly in the place we were as a group of people, as a generation 10 years ago. So how do we create that access? That becomes a second component of some of the work that we are trying to do with the schools that we are working in. The last piece I'll talk about is scale. When you think of measurement, data, metrics, etc., there is no denying that tech plays an incredible role in that. And through some of our projects of the Genpact Social Impact Fellowship, one of the things we wanted to do is to try and create that capability within the not-for-profits that we are working in, to be able to create that data measurement system so that you can choose the specific focus areas as far as the work that your not-for-profit is doing. So that's a little bit on our views as an organization, Anurag, and a little bit on some of the work that we're doing.
Oh, thanks a lot, Lavanya. And I think you added it very well in terms of highlighting the importance of access. Because when we talk in a group, there's a larger set of people who are sitting outside who lack access to all these resources which we are talking about. And it becomes very important if we are talking about a very inclusive, equitable, sustainable infrastructure, and where everybody should be empowered. And as I said, somebody sitting in a village in Nagaland versus somebody sitting in NCR or Mumbai, the needs are different, but both have equal, right to the access to the livelihood. So thanks a lot for highlighting that. And you also, I think, brought in the aspect which is about the holistic growth. How to run a business is as important as possibly somebody knowing a digital skill. Now, coming to Kamal, she also comes from a very interesting and impactful background, right? And I'm sure she will add more flavor to the entire discussion, which is quite IT heavy so far. And thankfully, we diverted a bit, right? So, Kamal, what are your learnings from the initiatives you have been running? I'm sure it's quite complex in nature. We would love to hear from you what exactly you're doing and how exactly you're using digital tools as well. That's the theme of the session. Over to you, Kamal.
Okay, I think thank you, Lavanya, actually, for setting the context, and Anurag for taking this forward, because I come from absolutely different background, where background in the sense work background, where we are talking about child rights, and from the most marginalized perspective and leveraging. So when we were talking, as Save the Children, when we talk about technology, we look at leveraging it, not just in building it, but how do we leverage whatever is available. And in terms of skills, when we talk about actually 21st century skills that talks about creativity in children, or positive thinking, to communication, leadership, life skill, problem solving. So we take skills from a different lens, relatively different lens. And when we talk about working, we talk about that let's invest a little early so that those children can leverage technology a little bit more. So, last 2 years have been, I would say, tremendously, I wouldn't say challenging, but it has given us opportunity to leverage technology a little differently. We used to do it as part of, say, one-off project. So if CSR is supporting some STEM education project, we'll jump to it and say, okay, let's do it. So our technology and understanding of technology was a little different. Now with this pandemic, it became like inevitable. We had to. We didn't have any option but to reach out to our children, and those children who are there in most marginalized location. So if you talk about Save the Children, most of you will know that we are in 120 countries, and India, in education per se, we are in 11 states. And we work with, say, for example, 3 years to 18 years of children, and developing these skills over a life cycle kind of an approach. And due to pandemic, we got disconnected with our children for some time. And when I represent education, so when we are used to having a teacher in front of us, we are used to having our fellow friends and kids and children and sitting alongside. So in this kind of learning environment, and this was not there, and the data says 320 million children out of school. So we couldn't talk about learning, we couldn't talk about skills. So the whole the issue was, how do we leverage low cost, no cost technology? So being from CSO, always looking for resources, the idea was that how do we maximize our efforts by leveraging low cost, no cost technology? So for us, the most handy thing, I would say, has been WhatsApp to phones, and I think these two and to even to some extent those old style mics, roaming around in community using those mics to send well-being messages, sharing with community what you can do during COVID. So I'm taking COVID as an example because this prompted us to look at traditional kind of technology to slightly modern kind of technology, which is cost effective, not cost intensive. So I would give you a simple example what we did. We thought that, how do we reach out to children? So what we were doing was we developed these self-learning kits, and we reached out to, during COVID, 40,000 children through these self-learning kits. It had small experiments, to colors, to pencil, to paper, and a lot of skills of different kinds to be developed. And this we distributed with smaller children, we distributed to the parents. So the whole idea was that when we have parent child interaction, certain other skills, which we say core skills, will get enhanced. So a lot of engagement and that kind of skills perspective I'm coming with. So self-learning kit prompted us to understand technology with our children. So I think that has been a great kind of achievement. Then what we started doing is we did a homegrown curriculum for younger children, and it was audio video based. The issue was, how do we share it with the parents? And what I think that was so. And when I said homegrown videos and audios, these were done by our field level workers, and there were 60 videos to begin with, and simply developed with their phone, with no technology guideline in the sense, how do we take pictures or how do we record background sound? You could see clothes hanging at the background and things like, videos may not be very appealing or pleasing, but idea was to communicate a message, and that's how we learned. We learned that there is something else to it also, not just messaging, but how do you package messaging, leveraging technology. So I think that was the time when we learned that we have to reach out to our children and parents. So we developed these videos went, and then the issue was, okay, people don't have phones. So we started exploring ways and means to reach out parents, like how. So we have something called school management committees or Anganwadi development committees, and you have these members. They had phones, so every day we would send a video, and these people will take them around to different community members. So that was one way of leveraging technology, low cost, no cost solution. Other way was that, okay, we created something called learning resource centers, and somewhere around 400 around 400 centers got created, which had audio video room. Children would come. We also leveraged content, standardized content prepared by corporates, and we showed it there, age appropriate, grade appropriate. So that's how we try to leverage different technologies. And also we were able to reach out to somewhere around, I would say, little over 1,500 Anganwadis, their teachers, somewhere around 800 schools, their teachers. So WhatsApp, videos, mics for capacity building, sending out IC messages, making everyday phone calls to know well-being of our children and our teachers and our other stakeholders to know how are they doing. And through this, our focus was to ensure learning continuity at in some way or the other. So these were the ways how we leveraged technology. A big experiment which got really, really good reach by different governments and they adopted it was Story Ghar. We created, resource pool of stories and radio, different state governments radios, they started relaying those stories. So community radio. So all those were the experience and experiments which we were able to do. And we reached out to children. The whole idea was 0-day loss in learning, keeping learning alive. And also, if our children can't reach out to us or the learning institution, how do we reach out to them using those low-cost, no-cost technology? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kamal, and good. And I was expecting this, that nobody has talked about Anganwadis and possibly the self-help groups. If you possibly ignore them, you cannot create a last mile impact. It's a very big enabler, and you brought that to a thing, and plus the low cost part of it. This is something very important. We have been talking about DIY kits and so many other things. So Ketan, you have got a small package for your university. You have got so many learnings and weapons, from this panel. Now, sure. I saw one question which disappeared. So it's the time for Q&A, and the question was more about all of you are running such high impact programs, but how exactly the beneficiaries can be aware that such program exists? It's more about the communication part, right? So possibly one or two of you can just and possibly share that what exactly you do to tell people that we are running this program. Why don't you participate?
I don't mind taking a shot at it first.
Sure.
As they say, there's no shortcut to creating that outreach. And I think the most important part is that you can't do it at a high level. You actually have to go to the ground and engage with the communities in order to share the fact that these programs exist. And I know many will agree with me is that it's not just about sending a message or having communication or so on. It takes a while to build trust in these communities, and therefore word of mouth also plays a massive role in creating that kind of communication and outreach. So, as far as the end beneficiary is concerned, it requires a very, very close watch as to how many are actually engaging. And once they're engaging, how many are staying? How many are actually continuing to be a part of those programs? How many are coming back to continue? So, there is no shortcut, and there is no, magical answer in order to communication, but really watching and working deeply and engaging with the communities.
And just adding on, sure. On this point, I think there's no shortcut, but I think there's also one role which government plays. And collaboration with government is very important and critical to share this information. So the more we collaborate with the government, I think it reaches, because they have mass implementation schemes which are essential to communicate.
I would also agree there, because I'm sorry, I was just adding to the point which Lavanya and Ketan kind of built on that, because we kind of take a top-down approach, because as Ketan rightly mentioned, if it's gone at the government level, the partnerships are happening at a government level, then it's a lot more easier for them to spread the message out. For some of our initiatives, we partner with a lot of ministries, right? And we have a partnership with the METI, Common Services Center. So Common Services Center are there in almost every village panchayat. So as long as you are doing it there, they will then transfer that information to a VLE, as they call it, village level entrepreneurship. And then that information is widely available at every panchayat level. So I think Lavanya rightly mentioned, there's no magic wand, right? You can't just say, hey, it's available, and the whole country kind of gets to know about it. I mean, you have to, there's a lot of work, absolutely a lot of work which is involved in it.
Right. So I think now I see Sparsh looking at us. Her video is on. So yeah, you want to share something, Kamal?
Yes, so Ketan and Lavanya stole my words. So I was talking about collaboration, partnership, because in today's world, you can't do everything on your own, right? You need supporters, you need partners. It could be government, it could be community, it could be people who think like you or work like you to, range can be anything. But one point I think which we need to understand is also establishing the need for leveraging technology. It's not just limited to the technology market mein hai, aap use kijiye, but establishing the need to leverage technology to reach out to masses or maximum people. Small example, education in emergency was never part of disasters and never ever discussed. But somehow or the other, we push that matter with the respective government authorities. And now we see, you know, programs coming out on education in emergency. So what I'm saying is establishing the need in the eyes of different stakeholders is also very important, besides, leveraging partnerships or collaborating with others.
Thanks, Kamal. Over to you, Spurs. I think we have more or less concluded that there is no fixed template, and we have discussed many ingredients with one can create a template out of all these initiatives.